When I saw this image, I knew I couldn't get the image I wanted in only one shot. So this is a 3-shot panorama. The camera was a Samsung MX1 with a fixed 16mm lens on a tripod. Camera settings was f8 at a 15th of a second and 100 ISO. I chose f8 because it's the optimal aperture opening for this lens. Pre-visualization is an important part of my technique. So when I saw this picture, I knew how I wanted the final result to look, and I couldn't get it with a single shot. So I did a 3-shot vertical panorama of the image. The roses were right at my feet, so I framed my shot, making sure that the critical point of focus was on the roses. They are the main picture element. Tilting the camera up for the second shot, the middle ground, I made sure I had an overlap on the roses so that it would line up in the panorama. My main focus point was at the edge of the rocks and the water. Tilted the camera up for the third shot, again making sure I had sufficient overlap. Now the sky would be blown out if I hadn't readjusted the exposure to compensate for the sky. The focal point was between the trees and the sky. Load the images into Lightroom and select all 3. Click on one image and go to Photo Merge Panorama. The dialog box will open and merge the images. Once they're merged, you can change the perspective settings to choose the one that will give you the best results. As you can see, there's a pretty dramatic difference in how the images are blended in perspective. Once you've done that, try the border wrap again to try and get the best representation of what you want. Once you're done with this, click on Merge. When the image opens in Lightroom, click on Develop. Because this was made from raw images, we can now adjust the image to retrieve the tonality that we need. Just the highlights to bring back the sky, go to the shadows to open up the shadows in the foreground, go to Clarify to increase the snap, adjust the exposure a little bit, white balance, the whiteness, blackness. Just keep fiddling until you get it so it's got a full range where you have detail in the shadows and detail in the highlights. And then you may want to add a little bit of sharpening. Now we still have quite a bit of distortion, so we're going to go to the lens correction and adjust the amount until we get the distortion out of the image and have an even parallel and vertical lines. The image could be a little bit warmer, so I'm going to go to color temperature and increase the yellow to warm up the image. Then I'm going to play with the exposure a little bit more to try and fine-tune that. Contrast. Remember, we want snap. Then we're going to go to upright and adjust that to try and get the optimum amount of information. I'm going to use scale, which will actually zoom out and show me the whole image so that I can see exactly what I have to work with. Once you have it adjusted the way you want, then we're going to go on up to the crop tool and crop it to get rid of some of the waste edges. Now we can move this in and adjust it. And we're not going to worry about any white spaces that we create on the outside, because we will take care of that with content-aware fill in Photoshop. Now I really want to emphasize this height, so I'm really pushing to get as much height in the image as possible. I think the roses are a little too close to the bottom edge, so I'm going to pull that down to give me a little bit more working space, knowing that I can fill that with content-aware. Once the image is cropped, we will then open it in Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, we can do the rest of the adjustments. So we're going to select the blank area using the Magic Wand tool. And then I usually go on up to Selection and I expand the selection slightly so that I know that I'm going to capture over the line. That way I won't end up with any blank spaces. Then I'm going to go to Fill, Content Aware, make sure it's on Content Aware and click OK, and it's going to fill that area very nicely for us. Then deselect the area you filled. Next adjustments will be done in Topaz Studio, which will be a destructive edit, so that we need to make sure that we duplicate our background layer so we're not going to destroy the original image. Because we've focused each one of the images separately, we will now have an image that is sharp from front to back because each section was individually focused. Now we're going to move the image over into Topaz to see if we can add a little bit more punch to the image. Topaz is an excellent piece of software. I use it all the time. The image is now open and we've made a basic adjustment. We can adjust all of the parameters of the effect here. I'm not going to go into those at this time because it's far too involved. Thanks for watching, folks. This is Dave Higgins. Wish you luck with your shots.